All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic start to the AM here. Happy Thursday, right? It's Thursday today. Um, and yeah, looking forward for or towards right another good and successful trading day. Yesterday was a really strong session. And then all things considered, right? Some pretty wild price action there, kind of post mid-morning pump, right? A very aggressive green to red reversal there with, kind of like crescendoing volume right to the downside. And we really start to sell off with a tremendous amount of aggression. So potentially, right, signaling a quote unquote personality change here in the markets. Now, that sell off appears to have been driven by the bond market auction. The supply and demand curve there has kind of fundamentally changed a little bit, and it's putting the Federal Reserve into a relatively tricky situation. And as that continues to basically maybe now dictate terms of the market here to a certain extent, I think we can expect a little bit more short-term volatility and hopefully, right, a little bit of opportunities, right, for us to get some nice trending PA. I think what we've also noticed here in the last little bit, and this is like a maybe this is anecdotal, right, and it almost maybe sets us up to for this to happen right this morning. But we've been seeing less fake outs right in the market here this week. It's been a little bit calmer. It's been a little bit more reasonable. It's been a little bit more kind of like trending type PA, right? And we've both been mostly seeing that here to the downside, but now have the like potential, right, for that personality shift here lower. And there's a good opportunity, right, for us to get some nice downside follow through and to be able to push price action here and really kind of sustain. Now, all things considered, right, it is still effectively a trending market, right? You kind of have your points of contact like this, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And we would need to get a really clean trend line breakdown effectively, right? Or a really nice crack under these lows for us to kind of say, hey, we need to be only bearish, right? Or we should only be focusing here for downside opportunities. So it's not necessarily over yet for bulls. And one day certainly isn't enough to sort of invalidate, right, a couple strong weeks, right, effectively. Now, there's a couple suspicious elements, right, that we should also kind of be considering and just kind of like adding to the context, right, of the price action that we've seen. So from that Wednesday, April 9th to now, effectively, we haven't really seen that VIX deteriorate, right, with any significant element. So, even yesterday, right, we were kind of seeing it, sub 18, and we didn't really see it get down to those like 15 handles that we normally would associate with kind of like a strong bullish trending market. So to a certain extent, right, in the background, that's telling us that maybe there isn't that much trust in that bullish narrative. And we could be looking for a pretty violent reversal, right? All things considered. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that this has now been a bull market bounce or a bear market bounce, sorry. I think maybe what we're going to kind of encounter here a little bit is like just a general range bound market instead of us having a market that's like bull market trend for 3 months, bear market trend for 3 months, bull market trend for 3 months, bear market trend for 3 months. I think it's going to be a little bit more kind of bouncy than that over the next little bit. And maybe we're not going to have a tremendous amount of opportunities to see growth in our long-term portfolios. But hopefully, right, we can still kind of take advantage of that volatility as day traders and have a lot of joy. For sure, right? Yeah, with the yield curve changing like 5% yesterday, there's definitely some potential for the stock market to tumble a little bit. I think it's important for us to note that we haven't really seen that like fear effectively show up here overnight. And so we want to be just a little bit cautious. On a day like today, this might be a session, especially if we're seeing it almost be like digested pre-market, that the general market here today is going to want to basically like wait to see what the reaction is prior to effectively giving us a tremendous amount of volatility. So I think there's going to be a certain element of needing to be patient here again. I think we've done a little bit of a better job of that here this week. We've kind of been picking our opportunities with a little bit more conviction, and I'm confident we'll be able to kind of keep that keep that going. Discord should be working fine. You might just need to refresh, but I see everything working totally reasonably. So you might just need to refresh your server. All right. If for whatever reason, guys, right, it stops working, you always have the backup link inside the live stream link channel. So you have a fail safe, right, if it doesn't work or your computer isn't capable effectively of handling it. So please always, either try refreshing your machine or your server. And then if that doesn't work, right, please try to use the live stream link tab. That will also have an option for you. All right. So right as well here today, we do have a little bit of market data. So we're going to have PMI at 9:45, right? So about 15 minutes into the session. That's going to be red folder type news, right? So it's going to be something that definitely slows me down here a little bit. We're going to have, probably a little bit of a slower morning, right? With data dropping at 9:45 and then 10 a.m. So it's almost going to be like wait to see how the first 30 minutes goes, like see how nervous participants are, right? Or how aggressive they are. And then we can use that information to effectively determine, right, where our strongest trade is going to be. I'm also not bothered if I have to wait till 10 a.m. or 10:30 to get a trade. I've kind of, and again, a little bit anecdotal, I need to do a proper study on this, but I've seen some of my strongest trades or my strongest plays kind of happen once that initial morning craziness has kind of gotten out of the way. So not a bad thing for us to be forced to slow down here to a certain extent. So yeah, with that being said, let's start mapping things out. Let's figure out what we want to do here this AM. And yeah, let's set ourselves up for what should hopefully be a successful and interesting trading day. So first things first, what's the count here on ES? Let's start there. And let's map out our trading day. And yeah, good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Who's got it? Yeah, 2 out of 3 here to the downside with volume. Exactly. Right. So it looks kind of like quote unquote trending price action there to the downside. Now we talked about already that trend line acting as a potential area of support. So if I'm going to have that like high conviction, right, of bearish price action, we should be able to lose that trend line, right, with no problem over the next session or so. It wouldn't be surprising to me for us to see that sort of bull market bounce, right, and then a big sell-off. I'm a big believer that markets like to move sometimes in the second most obvious direction. And the fact that we haven't seen really that like contagion fear happen overnight maybe puts a little bit more like hair on the chest of that thesis. So I am going to maintain a little bit of flexibility here, but to the upside, it's going to be with like extreme prejudice, right? We talked about that the other day with some of those bearish scenarios. It's going to be the same here today, right, with some of our bullish scenarios. Now, from a pre-market perspective, we're going to be looking at a 58.80 as our starting point. So we pretty much have to like reset all these levels. All right, and then we can maybe go up. I don't think we're going to go all the way to yesterday's high, but it could be in play. We'll go to like 59.30 or something like that. Right, and then to the downside, we basically want to see to the downside, right? We basically want to see it either reject inside yesterday's range, right, and give us a really strong breakdown from that point, or we want to see us lose this trend line on some volume and then break down from there. And then relative, right, to what the price action has been here overnight, right, and over the last few days, this could also be setting up, right, as like a mean reversion type scenario here to the upside. So again, right, we do have some flexibility here. We do have an opportunity to basically manage this trade in both directions, and let's just see where the enthusiasm shows up or how strong, right, participants are here this morning, or if there is that level of nervousness. I think a slower day, or a quieter day, or like a range bound day is probably better for bears. If we get a really aggressive dip buying opportunity, then we can argue that maybe they have fumbled the bag. To the downside here, right, we're looking at a 58.30 as our starting point, right? So that's going to be approximately the pre-market low. And then we're going down towards 5,800 and then eventually say 57.30. So we got about 100 points of range here on ES today. That'd be a little bit more than the implied volatility or the implied move. But hey, things can happen pretty quickly, and we could see again, right, that VIX give us that big intraday rise and really start to, create that extra level of fear here in the markets. I think we're going to know pretty early on how aggressive sellers are here today, and so I'm almost going to want to wait to see what that reaction is like prior to being super aggressive. All right. And then that's our mapped out, right? Our 100 points mapped out there to the downside. So I think a little bit easier of a trend trade here to the downside from like a larger term perspective, maybe a little bit of like a relief panic bounce here this morning. And then, we'll kind of go from there. So I think we've got a pretty good plan. But let's make sure that that story remains consistent if we're going to get any high conviction setups. Okay. NQ, similar, not so similar. How do we feel? Does that make sense? Yeah, same story, right? 2 out of 3 to the downside with volume. Maybe a less aggressive trend line support, right? Like the trend line's maybe a little bit further away relative to what we have there on ES. So, trend line support would be more or less, right, that Friday was it 2 weeks ago Friday now, right? That kind of area of support. So if I'm looking at price action, right, from a technical analysis perspective, maybe NQ is the easier short than ES, right? ES has a little bit more resistance to go through, whereas NQ maybe has a slightly larger window for us to have that sort of bearish momentum. And we're going to be looking towards 21.3 as our starting point, 21.4. And again, right, with extreme caution here to the upside. And then to the downside here, right, we're targeting pre-market lows. So we'll call that 21,000, right, kind of on the dot. And then we can map that out down towards sort of those Friday lows, right, which is 2,400. Cool. So a little bit maybe of an easier technical analysis picture here on NQ. And we'll see if this thing wants to cooperate and give us a little bit of a sell-off. I think the key for us here this morning, right, is going to be having consistent narratives. The more consistent the story is across the board, the more we see kind of like that general market theme take over, easier it is for us to be able to have a really strong trading day. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for here, kind of what I'm crossing my fingers for. And let's see if we can get that combo. Okay. So crude oil, right? We had inventories day there yesterday. We've got nat gas here today. Nat gas is not going to be an issue for us. We don't have to worry about that too much. So what's the count here on CL, right? And let's kind of go from there. Yeah, spot on, Mike. You're replacing Jack here today. 2 out of 3 to the downside without volume. There we go, updated. And we've seen a little bit of selling pressure here. This realistically is going to give us flexibility here in both directions. And let's see if we can basically maybe find some support off of that 60 range and get back up towards, the 60, 50, 63 area. I think as a starting point here, we're going to be targeting 61.50 to the upside. And then, kind of 50 cents along the way. All right. And then to the downside, we're looking basically for a rejection back down towards 60.50. We'll call that 60, right? Because we're at 60.68. So we'll just move towards $60. That 60.50 should get taken care of by the opening range indicator. And then, yeah, we're kind of targeting it down towards 57.50. So don't need to change our levels here too aggressively to the downside. But let's make sure that this narrative remains consistent. And maybe this will ultimately be the easier name for us to trade here today. Okay, Apple, 3 for 3 here to the downside. Tesla, 2 out of 3 to the downside without volume. Microsoft continuing to consolidate, basically inside that Monday range, kind of showing us maybe some relative strength compared to the index. What is that, Tuesday's range or Monday's range? That's Monday's range. Okay, Amazon, 2 out of 3 with volume. I mean, so far, right, all of our leading names are kind of giving us a consistent narrative here. NVIDIA setting up for earnings here pretty soon. Not Voplum. All right. Meta, interesting. Green candle, increasing volume, gap up. So 3 for 3 here to the upside again, right? Maybe kind of in line with Microsoft, showing us relative strength compared to the indexes and other leading names. Netflix again, right? A 3 for 3 here to the upside. I say this every day. I do prep on Netflix, but I'm always blown away by how this stock behaves. And then the old Google, right? Again, right? Another little 3 for 3 here to the upside. So if I'm already looking at, I think some of our individual names here this morning, we almost have like a 50-50 split between strength and weakness. So if I'm already seeing that, and we've kind of had like a pretty aggressive technical sell-off there yesterday, right? In relation to sort of the bond auction. Maybe the story I'm getting, right, from our leading names is one of indecision or one of like caution, right? So I think the narrative that we have of today being a bit of a slower session, I think remains still relatively intact. And we're going to want to make sure that we're seeing those consistent narratives here this morning. Otherwise, we're really going to struggle to get a clean story. I think the biggest thing that I want to avoid here today, and I talked about this a little bit on, what was it, Tuesday, and I didn't do a great job of it, but is basically just getting or avoiding, right, some of that choppy PA or that challenging price action or some of that like nasty market flow. I want to find a clean, easy, smooth trading setup. I don't want to just find the first one, right? So for me, I think it's going to be a day of patience and caution. We're going to be forced into that caution to a certain extent because we have data at 9:45 and then we've got data at 10 a.m. So really the plan here this morning is let's wait to see how the markets react to that news. If that then becomes a catalyst for a continuation sell-off, or if not, right, if they find support, really can kind of stomach some of that early volatility and then kind of bounce up and sort of support the Netflixes, the Microsofts, right, the Googles of the world? Or are we going to see those names kind of fall back in line, be good soldiers, right, and also then kind of march lower with sort of all the other leading names? So I think we've got a pretty interesting story for us to kind of see which side sort of wins here today. And if we can get that high conviction opportunity or that high conviction setup, should be a fun session. If not, happy to sit on hands. Yesterday was a really strong trading day. Fundamentally, if I don't get another trade here this week, it's been a really successful week. So let's see, right, how the day kind of shapes up and then kind of go from there. Any questions here this morning, team? Anything that doesn't make sense? How we feeling? Yeah, I love that, Vinny, right? And I think, yeah, I think that embracing that discipline as a trader and just like believing in that long-term outcome, that's the thing we need to fall in love with. That's the thing we want to focus on. That's the thing we want to control. I can't control how the market's going to move. I can only control my reaction to the market. And so the more disciplined and structured and yeah, like methodical I am with that process, the better my trading is going to go, right? So that's always the obsession. That's always the thing that I want to focus on. Control the variables we can control. And I love that as a mindset for you this morning. I think that's the right way to look at it. Also worth noting, right, team, that there's a market holiday here on Monday. So markets are going to be closed on Monday. So if we do get sort of like a big sell-off, it's going to happen today, tomorrow, right? We're going to get that enthusiasm kind of showing up within that context. Otherwise, yeah, there's no reason for me to be hyper aggressive. But yeah, let's see how things sort of shape up. And yeah, sorry that I couldn't sync up the family holiday with the market holiday. But we'll take care of that. Or I'll try to make it up to you guys with some nice good trading here today. So we got a few minutes till market open. I think it's time for a cup of coffee. Spend a few minutes here, sort of visualizing a successful trading day, and then yeah, we'll jump back on in a couple minutes, and we'll get ourselves ready for what should hopefully be a strong session. So we'll be back at it again in a couple, and I'll talk to you guys then. All right, team. So yeah, in general, right, expecting there to be a bit of a fight here this morning, right? Not sure if we're going to see tremendous amount of enthusiasm here either way. Generally, when the market gives us that like big event or that big sell off, kind of the next day is like a day of catching our breath, assessing the damage, right, before sort of the next move happens. If we do get some downside selling pressure, it might be a little bit easier on NQ than ES because we're at less kind of like, technical resistance, or however you want to phrase that. So looking to see basically where that enthusiasm shows up here this morning. Do we get a, kind of good amount of selling pressure? Do we see volume kind of push us to the downside? Do we see that momentum lower? Or are we going to see kind of a continuation narrative, right? Are we going to see basically like the long term, and that's in like Austin Powers quotation marks, right? But are we going to see that long term trend effectively hold, give us that little relief bounce type day, and then create a level of enthusiasm based off of that? Although the VIX is, up 15%, it's in that 21 range here this morning and giving us a nice little amount of implied volatility. I think it's probably still less than one would expect, right? We've seen it really comfortably hanging out in the 25 to 30 handle when we've seen kind of some of that selling pressure, and we haven't quite gotten back to those same levels. So there is some quote unquote fear in the market, but I wouldn't say that it's anything that's like out of the ordinary or a move, right, that is like overreactionary. So this morning, right, looking to see basically which direction markets want to go. We're going to call this a 2.5 out of 3. And hopefully, right, we can get ourselves a clean trade, get out of here with a smooth day, kind of like we had yesterday, and then go from there. So I'm excited to see, what markets want to do. I'm excited to see kind of the level of enthusiasm, right, that we can kind of see across the board. And hopefully that means that we can get a strong trading day, and take advantage of whatever volatility is in store for us. Again, right, expecting today to be a little bit of a slower start to the session. We've got data dropping at 9:45 and then 10 a.m. I think that the market's going to try to digest some of that early information. And then once it has, right, then we can kind of figure out which directional path we want to go in. The other alternative, right, or the other thing we want to be watching for now that markets have opened is how enthusiastic is the opening range, right? When we saw that opening range kind of be in that 27 handle on Tuesday, we set ourselves up for a chop day. Yesterday, we kind of got a little bit of a larger range, right? We kind of got back into that 60 handle, right, on NQ, and then kind of in that like 13, right, plus range on ES. So expecting, if we're going to see volatility, we should see enthusiasm. We should see a lot of action here early. If we're not going to get that, and it's going to be a day of compression or a compressed range relative to what we've seen here so far this week, and that again, right, gives us a clue of that this is a market that's kind of holding its breath here for a day, and then we can kind of reassess again tomorrow. So obviously, I'm still going to be looking for action, still going to be looking for trades. It's not going to necessarily force me to sit on hands, but I want to take as many kind of contextual clues as I can from this market here today to hopefully identify what the path of least resistance is, and then look to basically take advantage of whatever that momentum kind of ends up being. So I'm excited, right, to be trading. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to what should hopefully be a successful trading day. But yeah, let's make sure that we're just controlling the variables we can control, having ourselves a strong session, and then, we can kind of go from there. So any questions, team? Everything kind of makes sense. We feel generally good about today's trading day. All right, beautiful. So reasonable sized range, right? If it can hold above 200, that would be great. Decent amount of volume here. Nothing crazy. Okay, so that little ding there was a CL and 3 min and 2 min mean reversion. It's just a little bit of a lag on my initial setup. So let's see, right? Not a super strong close there from ES. We went from 220 to 183 in about 15 seconds. That's pretty interesting. So we saw kind of some early dip buyers, right? And now we're seeing that kind of move fade a little bit. Again, I'm going to be patient here, right? Because we've got data dropping at 9:45. So I'm not going to be like obsessing over needing that early action, right? Or craving that early action. I want to find that perfect A plus setup. I don't want to compromise, right? Compromising only costs me money. And I always regret it, right? In the moment, it feels great. 20 minutes later, or once you get stopped out, it makes you feel just like the world's biggest idiot. We want to avoid that sensation here as much as possible. And yeah, let's now judge, right, how strong these initial breakdowns are. If we see that clean breakdown, right, that textbook move, it holding lows, it maybe even supporting it on volume, we're going to have a really clear shelf, right, for us to have some joy with. If we don't get that level of enthusiasm, then no worries, right? I'm happy to sit in hands and protect what's been a pretty strong week here so far, even though we've only had 2 trading days. So it's just a reminder, right, that we're traders. So we get paid for our decisions, not our time. And if the market doesn't give us anything, sometimes our best position, right, is to sit on hands and not make things worse or to give back gains. I think in these kind of like potentially returning to maybe some choppy markets, right, or like range bound markets where we have 5 days green, 5 days red, 5 days green, 5 days red. Really what our job is going to be is to take advantage of those opportunities that come in, but then also making sure that when we do get those clean looks in between those opportunities, we're basically not just like chipping away at our P&L just to feel alive, right? That's really the emphasis here. And we're seeing, tremendous volume on the second candle of the day. Seems pretty likely that we're going to get an increasing second volume bar. That doesn't happen very often. When it does, especially to the downside, it's a very good indicator of kind of like a big downside continuation type day. But let's be patient, right? Let's make sure that we're getting a good story. And then, we can kind of take advantage of markets from there. And then again, right, I'm not, even if I get a signal here, right, at this 9:36 close on this 3 min time frame, I'm not going to be going after it because I need to wait for that 9:45 data. So it's almost seemingly now looking like an overreaction higher, overreaction lower. And if we stack up these 2 candles together, this is like what I would call like a fuck you doji, right? Pure indecision. So high volume indecision is generally not a good decision. And so far, right, big fake out higher, big fake out lower. This is trying to frustrate as many participants as possible. So let's not fall for that trap effectively, right? Let's be deliberate. Let's be patient. Let's be methodical. And let's let the market come to us instead of needing validation from placing lots of decisions and lots of trades. That's a surefire way, I think, to get frustrated here today. Interesting start here. Very interesting start. Oh, excuse me. Oh yeah, Mike, we've done pretty well here so far this year. 80, if we're green on 83% of our days, again, I think it's like 14 red days on the year, something like that. It's a great place to be, right? It's showing us that our risk management is working, that our position sizing is working well, right? We're taking shots, right? We're taking enough opportunities. We're managing our risk well when those trades don't work. And then us being able to add to winners, right? And their risk reward ratio is giving us that margin of error. So, all things considered here this year, we're kind of like coin flipping on our trades to a certain extent. But when we're right 2 times, 3 times larger, right, than our average loss. And that's making things really easy, right, to finish consistently green. So there's been kind of a nice decoupling or a detachment away from your win rate, or at least from my perspective here, and not judging myself based on that, because I think it's kind of like a bit of a meaningless metric. And we're kind of proving that, right, in practice here this week. So it's been, or this year. So it's been a really fun start. It's kind of been a bit of a year that's like broken some maybe limiting beliefs that I maybe had. And the less pressure seemingly I put on myself to be green on every single trade, kind of like the better my day to day, week to week, month to month is going. So that's really fun. I'm officially trading now with 8 accounts as well. So extra bit of leverage here. So let's see if we can turn right that momentum into more P&L. That's the dream. So you know what? All things considered, kind of a nothing open, right? Doji on kind of the longer time frames. So we definitely had the right read of the market to be like, hey, we need to be patient. Yeah, I have Rico in the past for sure. I've also closed a bunch of accounts, right, by just taking max payouts. So yeah, it has happened. Yeah. Like this idea that losing an account is a bad thing, I think it's a little bit of a misconception. But it's been yeah, all things considered, been pretty strong. I mean, we had that one trade. This might have been maybe like a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, where it was the mean reversion setup and ended up dealing with like $4,500 worth of drawdown, right, on that position before it ever kind of climbed back and got back within striking distance of where I wanted to have been. That trade was the closest I think I've been to blowing an account this year. And had I not had the drawdown, I would have blown it. I've had, a drawdown to lose an account on a single trade here. But I think that was more of an exception than a kind of a consistent process. And yeah, I mean, I think I think of when the last time it would have been that I closed an account. But yeah, just cycling through them, it's kind of the way you gamify it. So, getting a payout, losing your account, getting a payout, losing an account is a winning formula, even if it doesn't necessarily feel that way. And I'm basically trying to close my accounts every 30 days. No, most of them are Top Step. I don't have actually any Apex accounts. So they're mostly Top Step. So I got 5 Top Step, 2 My Funded Futures, and 1 Tradeify. Well, it's not reapplying. It's making sure that you have eval accounts that have been passed, or passing new evals. So the reason I prefer My Funded Futures and Top Step relative to Apex is just the payout process is much easier, and they just have less restrictions. So Apex is great if your objective is to like farm 30 accounts, but they have such like arbitrary caps on the payout that you can get per account for the first, I think it's like 30 days or something along those lines, or first 30 green days, that it makes it really, really challenging to actually like realize all your gains. Now, if you're trading 30 accounts and you're pulling out 2K every 2 weeks from each account, who cares? But I find less value in that personally, or I find that harder to do. Maybe that's a better description. You get those emails, so they give you like warning emails. Hey, we're looking at you, you're doing well, yada, yada, yada. And then close. I don't use a trade copier, guys. I execute it all on separate screens. I don't use trade copiers. TopStep has their internal one, which I will use, right? Like through TopStep X. But I don't copy across all 3 plus personal. I don't trust it. Okay, so there's that 945 data. Let's see if it gives us any sort of element of conviction here. CL gave me a 15-min mean reversion setup. Not sure I'm super convinced by that yet. Not a strong enough candle in my opinion. So again, right, I'm gonna be pretty patient here. It's a 1 candle up, 1 candle down open so far. So our patience, right, I think is very much validated at the moment. And so I just want to just clarify on that copier comment, right? The reason why I'm hesitant to use a trade copier, it's a couple of reasons, right? One, when I was working institutionally, I would be executing orders on 25 different windows at a time, right? So having or setting all those up and going through that process, it's not difficult, or it's something that I've done a lot of and was expected to do with much more capital than what I'm trading now. The other element, right, is that I don't trust that I would be made whole on my personal account if there was some sort of trade copier issue, right? So I've seen some horror stories of like trade copiers basically glitching out, not working, firing through 25,000 orders, and then you just have no visibility of what the heck is going on, when and where. You know, if I was only trading prop capital, I might be a little bit more willing to take on that risk. But with personal capital, I have no trust that if there was some sort of tech issues or tech issue, that they would cover, right, that cost or make me whole, right, in my personal account. I don't, I just don't trust it, right? So it's not worth it for me to take on that risk, just to have a slightly easier execution process. But like that's like a selfish requirement, right? Everyone's going to have a different tolerance there. Everyone's going to have different things to work with. And yeah, like I said, if I was exclusively only trading prop accounts, I'd be much more willing to do so. But with trading a personal fund as well, I just don't trust that they'd give me my money back. And losing that would be much more painful than the potential benefit or the potential reward of having a trade copier set up and being smooth. I guess one thing I don't understand about people wanting to be algo traders, right? Is like if you're trading an algo, right, and you have it programmed and you're executing, are you like going to assume and trust that it's going to work perfectly each and every single day? I personally wouldn't, right? I would assume that at some point there's going to be an issue. There's going to be a something that breaks, something that doesn't work the way that you expect. And those types of issues, right? Maybe a market data issue, maybe a execution issue, maybe there's some sort of glitch. Well, I would be very hesitant to think that it would resolve itself smoothly. So you still need to watch the market all day, right? Make sure that it's actually behaving the way that you'd expect. So if that's the case, right, then trading with an algo is much less appealing. Yeah, it could be waiting for the news headline, Robert. It could be that. I think also just after yesterday's kind of like big green to red move and the results of the bond auction, it creates like a day where the market wants to digest the news and yeah, basically like position itself for the next move. Kind of like the general feeling in my opinion. So, when you get that personality change type day, usually the most likely outcome is a day of consolidation prior to then the move continuing. That makes sense. And I don't think it's a ninja skill, Rajat, right? Like it's not that complicated. You line up everything, it all looks the same, and you just fire through. So it's not as difficult as you think, but you just have to create that muscle memory around it, right? That's really all it is. And good decision to have waited on CL on this 15. And yeah, we're just looking for a resolution here of this indecision. So far, so bouncy. I mean, maybe a little bit embarrassing. I just tried to pick up my microphone and pretend it was a cup of coffee. So it's an interesting morning here to say the least. Been there, Mike. Been there. Hey, congratulations, Rico. That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to watch it. Again, we've got 10 a.m. data dropping, and we need to now establish a fake out higher, right, after the fake out lower. So we're watching, guys. We're not going to miss anything. Right, we've already seen really choppy action here to the downside. So the base assumption, right, is equal move lower, equal move higher, or equal frustration lower, right, equal frustration higher. So it's better to be patient and cautious here than too aggressive inside this chop. If it's obvious and strong and we have no reason to miss it, we'll trade it. Don't worry. But yeah, NQ is definitely stronger than ES. Right, better volume profile, better candle shapes. Yeah, it's 6 minutes here till market data. So we do have a little bit of a tradable range here. But let's see again, right? I'm still kind of anticipating there to be a fake out higher. And then once you get that breakout through the fake out, that's where we could start to have some joy. There's nothing here that I've seen that indicates a divergence from choppy price action, right? Nothing there has changed yet. Oh, just be patient, team. Just be patient. You know, had we taken this trade, we would have been stopped out already, right? So we need to remind ourselves that discipline and patience is a virtue here. And that, you know, in the short term, our most profitable position until we get a resolution of that chop is to sit on hands. I know that that's boring and it sucks to hear. But we are, like I said, we get paid for our decisions, not our time, right? So we made our plan. We anticipated that it was going to be choppy and bouncy and all this kind of stuff. Now it's our job, right, to basically make our actions match our words. Truth be told, Vinny, that's kind of like an impossible statistic to be able to answer. You know, you'll see stats from like brokerages or studies from brokerages that basically say that like most people are unprofitable in year one. And that's because most people, right, will make money, lose it all, and then never return back to the market, right? It's kind of like the most common thing. I'm not sure if I would think about that too much. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the experience, Patrick. I think obviously to a certain extent there is like a level of intuition that you develop, right, or you learn as a trader, and you're like, okay, this isn't behaving maybe the way that I would expect. But it's also just, I mean, like the evidence that we've had over the last month, right? You just start to remember those bits of information. And every time we get a big day, it ends up being kind of like a choppy session, right? For the next little bit. Get a big day, it's a pullback. Get a big day chop, big day pullback, big day chop, right? So you're kind of just assuming the market's going to behave like it always has until you get a proven otherwise. And we haven't gotten many proven otherwise here immediately. So it's better to basically just like slow down the process than it is to try to like rush it or force it or overtrade it. Every day or every time that I say that I expect it to be a choppy market and then take a lot of trades, I end up just getting chopped out and lose money. So it's almost like the evidence I have anecdotally, and this is kind of what happened on Tuesday, right? Is okay, I have a bit of a backdrop of choppy conditions. Oh, I think I can navigate it better than I expect. And then I lose money, right? So you just take the information that the market is giving you, you adapt, you learn from it, you improve. And then you just, again, right? Like my base assumption is the markets are going to behave like they always have until proven otherwise. And until I see those proven otherwise, I'd rather be too cautious than too aggressive. So we've got data here dropping in a minute. We're setting up nicely for 10-minute breakouts. So again, right, we've got lots of opportunities here. It's just better to be patient than too aggressive. So let's see, right? Maybe this NQ 10 min, ES 10 min to the upside could be in play. But let's make sure that we don't basically get just a terrible reaction to news. Yeah, I like that, Rashawn. It often feels like the money in trading is made in waiting. Okay, so let's watch this news reaction here, right? Are we getting a big algo move or not? Again, right? Little fake out, touches 300. And it kind of feels like it's knocking for a pullback here. Maybe not. All right, we'll start to map this out a little bit. So stop loss would be, we'll call it 277. And let's wait. Like yesterday was such a nice day because we were one and done, right? I want more of those one and done days. Okay, reasonable reaction. So we're going to be looking, right, for a long here opportunity. Like we said, stop loss 277. So this would be a one contract position, right? This would be a one contract position. And I need to get around 300 as an entry price. So it's kind of along those areas, right? Otherwise, I can't get the position sizing I need to be able to execute this trade. But watching NQ here to the upside, and let's see how this thing pulls back into 300. Not super enthusiastic with that reaction. I'm going to be waiting just a little bit still. Again, doesn't really feel like that 300 is acting as support yet. It's kind of still like a tug of war, right, around that blue line. So I don't think it's ready for me to jump in here as of yet. I wouldn't be surprised for us to make a lower low under that 277. better. See how it keeps getting to like 298.75, 299.75, 300, and then it's like it hits a wall. We're looking to see that wall basically get stuffed, right? Here it goes back up quickly. Quick support. Let's see if it drops, right? Again, gets back under 300. So 300 is not acting as support here yet. It seems to be an area where people are loading up for rejections. So we might need to shake out those weak participants prior to us getting an entry here. Okay, better. Again, if this thing sets up on the 5, we might be able to take advantage of it here. Yeah, no rush here, team, right? No rush here. I'd rather catch the middle, right, than I would try to catch the end. Yeah, I mean, I should get the increasing volume there on the 5 as well. I don't have increasing volume here on this previous 3-min candle, so I can't use that as my confirmation standard. So 5-min going to be close. Just under, so we're going to still maintain that 10-min candle here. So still looking at this 10-min setup. And again, right now we're going to just go back to watching how this reaction is around 300. It's given us a little move above, but nothing like crazy. So let's see if 300, right, acts as support. I've still not been super convinced by this price action. So I'd rather be too cautious than too aggressive. Those are starting to be better and better reactions for sure. Right, we saw that dip under 300 sustain for a lot less time than the kind of like first half of this candle. So there it bounced right off of 300. Let's see if it does it again. Yeah, it's kind of a good day to have trust issues, right? I've got some serious trust issues right now. Okay, so we got another minute here, right, till this next 3-minute candle closes. Again, not expecting this to go increasing volume. We're kind of waiting, right, for these stories to become consistent here. There is still no reason for us to be rushing. But be patient here, team. Be patient. And just from like a personal perspective here, my dog, the weirdo, he's been napping in the shower. I don't know where he got that that idea from. And again, guys, we've not missed out on anything, right? See how it keeps just pulling back to that 300? We've missed out on nothing. So just be patient here. Be patient. Yeah, maybe. He saw his first bear the other day, so maybe he's got some residual fear hanging out. Yes, maybe giving us a nice little breakout here as well. A super strong candle. So I'm still going to be looking for this 300. Again, watch, right? We've not really seen a tremendous amount of separation over or a tremendous amount of separation below. Still watching here, though. Still watching. And right, price just keeps coming back to that point. So, like, yes, I probably could have made a couple $100 here. I don't know if that would have been worth it. Yeah. So still watching here, right? How does this absorption happen? Can I get just like a ridiculous discount relative to that and almost like make money off of the overreaction? Let's wait. Again, guys, we've not missed on anything, right? So don't trick yourself into thinking, oh, I would have made a ton of money on this. We wouldn't have. It's like it's kind of bouncing right off of those lows, but then it's like it hits a ceiling really quickly. I think we're going to get a low under that 277 here in a second. I do think that. We'll see. Again, right? We've not gotten any tremendous amount of separation here to the upside, right? We've not missed out on anything. We've not missed this move. There's that 277. And there it is, right? That would have stopped us out. So again, we've made a good decision here. It's not an easy one. It's kind of a frustrating one. But you know what? We had a good pulse there. We avoided taking a loss. We bought ourselves time to make a decision. And instead of losing money, right, we're sitting on zeros. That's a good place to be. It's boring, right? But it's a good place to be. I would rather be bored and profitable than excited and red. %, Alan, 100%. And okay, now, right, if we start to see some volume separating away from these highs, like these bearish engulfing candles turned into rejections, then we have a chance to basically give us that same move, right, or that same thesis we had there yesterday, right? Kind of a weak breakout higher, capitulation type move, and then an aggressive red to green move. So let's see if that ends up kind of coming in. So far, everything's just been kind of muted and boring. And we talked about how this being, that maybe was a high probability type of day of price action. We've effectively seen that so far. So, not the most exciting day in the world. But you know what? A good process day is worth a lot more than a cheap little P&L win. We definitely have a chance here for those red to green reversals. Let's see. Okay, we're already at increasing volume here, so we are looking for a downside move now. And this, right, we would expect to potentially be a slightly easier trade because we've seen bulls fail, right? We've seen one side of the coin effectively lose its level of enthusiasm. I would probably make my stop loss here to be high of day on the pullback technique versus high of my confirmation candle, like a little bit of an exception there. And so that would mean, right, that my entry is like 305, I'll call it 307 or better. Now, if we get the aggressive technique, right, which is how it's kind of setting up now, yeah, we're pretty much spot on here, right on a 262 entry. We want to see it break down right under that blue line and then a gentle retest back up above. We still haven't made a lower low, so the pullback is still in play, but the aggressive would be preferred. So watching here to the downside, team, starting to watch here to the downside. And I'm going to have my stop loss set as 287. Okay, so now we want to see a gentle pullback here. Okay, so I am in, guys. I am in. Average price 265.75 short, one contract. And let's see if this thing can break down. Maybe not a perfect entry. Let's see if it can crack here. Come on. Oh, little bit bouncy. So let's see if it can start to break down. Okay, this should be where we start to see it really push lower, right? This should be where we really start to see it push lower. Another little retest, right, of our entry price zone is not going to be a great sign. So if this thing is strong, right, it should be where it starts to separate from. Otherwise, you just need to get out. So pretty bouncy here, which I think is making this a little bit more challenging than I would like. But let's see if this thing can flush. Come on. And I'm up $5, $10, down $5, up $10. Kind of bullshit. Let's see. Here it goes. Watch, watch, watch. There we go. So let's see if we can start to get some separation now through 250. Come on. And not enough separation yet for me to pyramid in, so I'm not thinking about that here yet. Let's see if we can get that breakdown through 250, and then we can start to talk about it or think about it. There is a little part of me that doesn't still trust this move a little bit. Come on, flush, flush, flush. Much better, much better. Here we go, team. That's 600. Let's see if this can keep breaking down. Keep pushing, keep pushing. Bad pullback. This has been a very bouncy trade. Come on. Keep going, keep going. There we go, 715. You gotta trust your position, right, Vinny? You gotta trust your position, man. That's 800. Fantastic work here, team. Let's go. All right, so I'm gonna start to think about right, your strategy only works if you trust your winners are gonna stay winners, right? You got to get over that fact of our losers are gonna turn into winners and that our winners are gonna turn into losers. That's how you maintain, right, a losing edge. So don't fall for that. That's just a mental trick. So let's see if this thing can keep breaking down, but it's been a really strong trade here so far, team. There's 900. Come on. Keep flushing. Keep flushing. And I will not let this trade go red at this point, right? I will not let this trade go red. I don't use VWAP as my exit price. Rico, you know this. Okay. I don't like this pullback too much. Not the healthiest feeling pullback. So let's see if I can get this thing to give me one more flush, and then I can look to get out. Come on. Okay, watch, watch, watch. This might give me my exit chance here. Watching closely here, right? Watching closely. Come on. There we go. Start to watch this thing break down. It's almost $1,000. Fantastic. Here we go, team. So now watch this reaction around 200. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Hmm. Yeah, I think I can pyramid in here. Nice close. Great close. Okay, guys, I'm not going to pyramid. I'm just going to look for an exit. I'm going to look for an exit. Give me a little flush. Give me a little flush. We're close. We're so close. Hey, come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, you're teasing me. Nice work, Jeff. Nice work. $1,000, guys. That's a great day. Come on. What I'm trying to do here, right, is I'm really focusing on trying to basically control my greed, right? I just caught myself there, sitting hunched over, really like hyper focused on price. Okay, not falling for that track or falling for that trap. Yeah, I don't know what I was trying to say there. And I'm just trying to really focus on the quality of the price action, right? Nice work, Kiki. Let's go. Okay, so I've just pyramided in here. I have just pyramided in. Average price is now 253. And let's see if this thing can get down and keep breaking down. And again, right now that I've pyramided into this position, I'm going to be looking pretty aggressively for an exit, right? Pretty aggressively for an exit. I don't like this pullback too much. Maybe a little bit too aggressive. So let's see if we can keep going. See if we can keep going. Okay, keep pushing here. NQ, keep pushing. I believe in you. Okay, fantastic. Keep going. That's 935, 975. Over 1,000. There's 1,200. So now we want to see this thing really flush, right? I just survived the worst case scenario. So now let's see it really push lower. Come on. Kind of take the long way route right here this morning. Again, still just really focusing on finding an exit, struggling to find one a little bit. Nice work, Kiki. Come on. I feel a little bit stupid for not taking profit there. Gotta push. Gotta. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Fighting some demons here a little bit, truth be told. I can't quite get the close I want, and I can't quite get the reaction that I want to trust that I should hold this. Come on, you're so close. Okay, this might be my chance here. Flush, flush, flush. Okay, push, push. This is your moment. This is your moment, thank you. Has to happen here. Well, no, it's not. It's not like yesterday's trade, right? It is not like yesterday's trade because we've been green the entire time, right? So no, I don't agree with that sentiment whatsoever. And I keep surviving worst case scenarios, but they make me feel like shit. Dumb, 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 dumb. Come on, die. You're so close. It's a bad move at the end. Oh, they. Just trying. I'm sorry. I'm being really focused here. Trying to find my exit. Come on. Come on. Pay me out for my patience. Come on. Break. 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 Okay. 1200. Come on. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Yeah, but I'm not trying to close this from a P&L perspective, Ajay, right? I'm trying to close this when this trade is telling me that the move is done, right? Or that the personality has changed. Right? That's why I've continued to hold this position because I still kind of trust my thesis. So it's not Like, we're trying to not make decisions based on P&L, right, to the upside or to the downside. We're trying to be technically precise. Because if we need validation from the number, right, that doesn't scale very well. But if I'm focusing on the quality of my process and I'm focusing on the quality of my technique, then if I increase my sizing or increase my positions or increase my accounts, I don't have to learn a new skill set, right? That's the objective. So when I attach my self-worth or the value of a trade based on a P&L number, I miss, right, big moves that happen like this. All right, and there we go, guys. I am all out at 211.75, 211.75 for 16.65. So really good trade, right? Really, really good trade. And so really important, right, that we focus on the variables we can control. We can always control, right, following our plan, not reacting to our, right, whatever. And we were looking, right, for that overreaction flush to the downside to get out. That's what we were missing. That's what we got there on that last little move. So take it, run, right, reset, and move on. Again, right, we're not trying to attach our self-worth to our P&L. We're trying to attach it to the quality of our process. So not to say that we're pot committed, right, that once we say, okay, it needs to give us that flush to get out, we have to like panic close, or we have to be like only willing to do that. But if nothing invalidates that in the meantime, we can't allow our P&L to confuse us into doing something different, right, or something opposite of that. So trusting our thesis, right, is the most difficult when you're kind of at like that moment of decision. And we have to really build up that confidence, right, in trusting our plan, trusting our idea. You know, the thing to ask yourself, right, is if a move 15 points higher, Cole, sorry to call you out here, right, but a move 15 points higher, 15 move lower, if that makes you question the quality of your thesis, then you either don't understand the trade well enough, right? Or you don't have enough confidence to basically trust the plan. So you need to train that muscle, right? You need to train that as as your muscle memory, because there's no profitable trading if you don't allow your wins to actually increase and grow and be better. And look, we nailed that close, right? Within 6 points, maybe 7 points of the low. And so you know what you're looking for to get out. We defined what that was, and then we're effectively just stubborn enough to wait until the market gives us that. We generally know that we're not going to get that reversal type scenario until we get that kind of like pseudo capitulation type move. And so we have to learn how to trust our thesis, learn how to trust ourselves to be able to execute and follow our thesis, and then basically avoid those moments of self-sabotage in between, because all they do is cost you money, right? That's really all they do. So instead of having a $1,600 day, right, you're up break even. And that's a wasted opportunity, right? That should be something that you need to study, reflect on, and make a plan on how you're going to avoid that mistake in the future. If you can't trust your plan and you're struggling with it, size down, right? You're much more likely to be able to execute your technique well within that context if your size doesn't impact you. But if like the P&L swings are starting to make you emotional or, make you start to feel like insecure about your thesis, then it's likely your position sizing that's making that trade more challenging than it needs to be. All things considered here, though, team, right? That was a really excellent play. Another one and done type trade. And I have no complaints over how we managed that day. I had to fight a little bit of greed and a little bit of fear there, but right, like I think I mentioned what my reset was, right? I said I caught myself feeling greedy. So what did I do, right? I really focused on my posture, really focused on my breathing, right? Noticed myself like slouched over and my back looking like the hunchback of Notre Dame. And you find yourself those triggers, right? What happens when you start to feel like shit in a trade? What does my body start to behave like, right? What does my self-talk start to sound like, right? And you find that way to break your pattern. So for me, right, and I'm 95% confident I said this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's great. I caught myself being greedy and right, caught myself kind of being hunched over. So focus on your posture, reset, right? Get to as close to impartial as you can get, and then try again. Nice work, Mark. You're killing it, man. Any questions here, team? I'm not going to place any further trades. One and done's a great feeling. Up 1665. I don't need to do much else. Nice work, Jared. Let's go. So in hindsight, Cole, was your entry actually bad on your thesis? Nice work, Marco. Congratulations. Sounds good, Mike. Yeah, and you know what, guys? It's kind of a funny correlation. But on those days where we take 20 trades, they tend to not be our biggest P&L days, right? They tend to kind of be our smaller ones. So better to be focused, disciplined, structured, and just optimize for freedom instead of trying to force a P&L number. That does no one any good. Hey guys, I'm pretty happy. Any questions here, team? Any questions? I'm not going to place any further trades here this morning. Pretty happy with the day. Last two trades been two of like my biggest wins in a long time. So why do anything stupid to compromise that or jeopardize that, right? Let's go, Steven. Congratulations. Be thrilled with that. 2K is a fantastic day. Let's go. So again, right? Process, focusing on the quality of our process always improves the quality of our P&L. That's the lesson from today, right? And the more that I focus on executing my process, basically making my actions match my words, right? And not self-sabotaging, I do a lot better as a trader, make a lot more money, feel a lot more calm, right? Maintain a lot more mental capital. I don't have to be an asshole in here, right? I can be stoic Mike. And it makes a big difference, right? It's a lot more of a sustainable path forward instead of yeah, living and dying with the validation of each result. Not super sustainable. It's not super enjoyable, right? All things considered. And we just navigate choppy markets well, take our win, move on, come back tomorrow. Right? And we just turn green days into green weeks into green months, and then green months into resignation letters to our bosses, right? And if you want me to write you your resignation letter, I would love to do that. No better feeling in the world. Dear Mike's boss, go fuck yourself. Oh, 100%, Mark. Hey, I hear that, Patrick. You know what we'll do, Patrick, right? When it's appropriate to do so, when you send it in, right? What we'll do here is order to your boss like one of those like glitter bomb packages, so that when he opens it up, his just office has got 20 million pieces of glitter just absolutely everywhere, and it'll be in the DTR colors exclusively. So we won't know, like he won't know who it was, but there will be signs. Yeah, Tom. So outlier volume is anything larger than that white line, right? So this white line here is the 20 volume moving average, right? It's the MA, so 20 last average of the last 20 candles. Outlier is only when the volume is greater than the average of the last 20 bars, right? So outlier, it's either above, right? It can only be outlier if it's above average, which is above that white line. Really good trading day here today, team. Really good. Oh, yeah, man, I'm so tired. My social battery is spent. Oh, pretty happy with how we traded today, all things considered. So, guys, we're going to go final call for questions here. Final call for questions. Send me an email or a message on Discord. And we'll get you sorted out. All right, team. Final call for questions here. Final call for questions. And now we're sitting on 8. Beautiful. All right, team, final call for questions here. Final call for questions. And yeah, nice little rocket ship to the upside here. 0 complaints. Really clean trading day, guys. Really, really clean. All right, final call here, team. Final call. And again, guys, right? I don't care that this thing is now at 173. It would have retested my original entry price, right, of 263 prior to then making this breakdown lower. So I would have had to have broken a rule to have sustained basically this follow through here to the downside. I don't think that would have been worth it. Right? It's better to take a chunk out of the middle than to go top and bottom hunting. Is that understood? Yes, no, maybe, hopefully. And just, okay, I'm assuming that's a yes from everyone, but just as like a final little whatever piece, I'm really starting to enjoy being a West Coast trader. I got to tell you guys that much. It is awesome to be, I mean, it's not even 8 a.m. and we've made more money than most people will make in a day. So that's pretty epic. Go team, right? Last 2 days, really, really strong. Pushing just under 30K, right? In the last 2 days across all accounts. That's not a bad living. So same deal like always, right? If you have any questions, hit me up outside of market hours. I'll do my best to get back to you guys as soon as I can. Otherwise, we got a few of you I'm speaking to on one-on-one calls here later this morning, I guess, at this point now. So looking forward to catching up with a few of you, getting to know you, and helping you also, right, be able to accomplish all these sort of, trading P&L objectives. So well done here, team. Awesome trading day. Really good job. If you felt like maybe you made some mistakes or you weren't happy with how you traded, send me a message, right? Send me your executions. Show me what you did and explain your logic, and we can try to see if we can find a pain point that we can fix. But besides that here, everybody, enjoy your Thursdays. Have fun, and I'll talk to you guys pretty soon. So have yourselves a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.